You're in the financial services space, the same space I'm in, and I mean, everyone's been talking about debt this year and all default on bonds and all these conversations. But I'm curious to know, outside of the crisis in the financial sector, what has been your personal crisis this year?
Well, my personal crisis, first of all, I am in the financial services sector. I head the consumer sector at Stanbic Bank, Uganda, not Zambia. Um, no, so at the beginning of the pandemic, in the very first few weeks, I live alone. So there was that initial shock of, well, we're getting into lockdown and you live by yourself. Now, if I'm being completely honest, I'm a horrible cook. So I had a lot of burnt food in the beginning of the pandemic, those first few weeks where you're finding yourself trying to balance between how much time you can spend in the kitchen and on the Zoom and Microsoft Teams calls. So there's just that basic survival instinct. And then that genuine fear of just trying to get out of your house to even think about buying food. Restaurants were closing so early. It's not like you just have access to. So there's those initial elements. Can I actually eat? And then what changed for me is when then I decided, you know what, I'm going to starve in here. If I can find a way to move in with the rest of the family, and then we can bunker down and see how this thing goes. And that completely changed around my entire pandemic period. But professionally, at the same time, is a lot of the anxiety. Being a banker, my portfolio is quite wide. It's over 20,000 customers. And a lot of these are borrowed customers. A lot of these people had debt. A lot of these people had, and because the consumer sector covers fast-moving consumer goods, which is your basic retail outlets, your everyday workers who survive on an open economy. So when we shut the economy down, we're doing some basic impact analysis, and that sector was going to be hit hardest because malls are not going to open, shops are not going to open. If there's consumption is going to drop, which means the need for us to rethink our entire proposition had to happen immediately. So first few weeks was complete panic mode. Your phone is ringing every single minute. What can you do for me? What can you do for me? And people's anxieties are then projected onto you as the banker. Then you feel this entire weight of expectation to know that if you do nothing, you are going to crush so many businesses. And luckily, we were able to come to a decision to restructure every single loan within this sector, and all the loans within the education sector, all the loans within the oil and gas sector, because fuel stations were open, but there were no cars moving. So there's a lot of chaos that we had to take care of and deal. And that helped ease a lot of people's worries. And that was a difficult thing to go through because you are working from 8 a.m. in the morning up to 3 a.m. and then back at it at 8. Remotely, trying to coordinate with the teams that have to access systems on ground. Then you're having to manage a team. I manage a team of 9, and you're trying to decide how hard can I push? I mean, everybody's going through the same problems I am. How hard can I realistically push these people? But yet there's customers on the other side of the equation who need you to push and push as hard as you can. All the scenario plannings were done, all the business continuity. Nothing could have prepared us for the March, April rush. And every banks pride themselves with all kinds of scenario planning. But we've come out of this. We have a very strong leader. You were all on the call yesterday, those of you who were able to listen in. We were introduced to leadership with empathy, and were called into very deliberate discussions. If you manage a team, come together with senior management of the bank, and we were introduced very early on to leading with empathy. And that empathy was then transferred onto the customer. And I think everybody has benefited from that. And it's something that has personally been something I intend to carry forward as I continue along my leadership journey. It's such a powerful tool to just think about everybody else, to just think about that the stretch and all the hours that were put in to ensure these people's lives get back to normal, to ensure, I mean, we took a decision to extend loans to schools when we knew they're not making any money, just to make sure teachers' salaries were paid. That was so powerful. I mean, none of that money has ever been repaid. We gave it out in March, or in November, there's been no repayment, but you can take the hit, but the teacher can't. So a lot of our schools that were within our portfolios, those are kind of, that's the empathetic leadership that I'm referring to. How much do you think about the bottom line, and how much do you think about the people who really need this thing? So that those are some of the personal battles and professional battles, but somehow the line got blurry and professional became personal, and we became work in most instances. I'm sure all of us can relate to this. You become part of the work, you become your clients, you become the people that you're working with, and put yourself in their shoes. And that is the fuel that kept us going.
Thank you, Aaron. I want to circle back very quickly. You spoke to leading with empathy, and I think that is a concept that's come up more often than not throughout the course of the last 3 days, this idea of leading with heart, thinking about people first. In fact, I think it was our board member yesterday, David Mpanga, he also talked about the fact that your mind is just as an important muscle as anything else in your body, as you know, your bones, your heart, and you need to make sure that it's healthy and well. Now, I'm curious because across the conversations with Canary, with Innocent and yourself, some of the words coming up are panic, overwhelming, anxiety, fear, worry, exhaustion. So how do you then, are you able to share, and any one of you can share, how are you able to then show up and lead with empathy when you are feeling overwhelmed and when you're feeling fearful? How can you ensure that you are there for your team, or that you show up and you're your best at work, or even in your own personal life? Have any thoughts around that?
Okay, so personally, sometimes it's next man up. It's thinking about the end to drive the journey. So when I think about what this means, I mean, what I'm going through, if I'm going through an overwhelming situation, the expectation is I am not the only one that's going through that particular situation. The team is going through that situation. The people above me are going through that situation. So I think some of the fuel was, some of my fuel for that was seeing that at the very head of the organization, as an example, they were leading me with empathy. So it's then easy for me to translate that. So if the ball has been set, so Anne has set a certain threshold, because Anne has set a certain threshold, the team below is going to kind of follow suit. And then it comes down to the person, the individual, to think through, who am I doing this for at the end of the day? Is this for myself or for everybody else? And to be empathetic means to place yourself in everybody else's shoes and leave their struggle. And then it makes it creates all this dopamine in your system, because I'm doing the work that I'm doing has a direct impact on somebody else's life. If I don't do it, and don't do it well, a lot of things can go wrong. People can lose their jobs. People can fail to feed their families. So if that's not enough to fuel me to do what I do, to power through tremendous struggle and fatigue, and come out of the other side knowing, look, yes, I'm tired, but I have food on my table. Yes, I'm tired, but I have clothes to put on. I have a job. On the 24th of the month, my salary is coming. That's not the case for everybody else. So if I don't do my job, you will find a situation where they can't eat and you can't afford basics. I mean, a lot of our economy is informal in nature. It's everyday payment. If I'm going to be the big bad wolf and take away people's ability to to pay their salaries for their workers, the trickle-down effect of that, the ripple effects, the domino effect of a simple decision like that to remove the financial obligation from an entity is so big. And I think you have to just look within yourself to find that core that we like to talk about at the Institute, to find your core and pour and just lead by that.
Thanks, Aaron. So having leaders around you who set the tone really helped you all tap into your empathy. Thank you. And very quickly, because